Hi, I'm Fatimah Gimsay, a writer, producer, and director. I'm a script editor and a writer.
When I first read up about you, I saw that you studied communication and media studies in university. Did that influence your decision to become a filmmaker, or were you always going to be a filmmaker? Was filmmaking always in your mind before that?
Filmmaking was never in my mind. Like it was not even a thing I considered as a career. Like to be very honest, even when I was studying, so I studied public relations, advertising, and journalism together. So I've always been in that phase of okay, last, I'll get a job, something like a CNN kind of journalist. Like I don't know, those are the people I saw as people I wanted to be growing up, like the CNN reporters. Their job looked so much fun, and for me, that was the most media I liked, and I enjoyed storytelling. I loved my telenovelas. I loved my series, but I just never thought that was my own path. Like I never saw it as something for me. I just thought it was for a special group of people. So it was never like it never crossed my mind until just right before I graduated. That's when life just threw me into that path, and I was like, wait, oh, I think this is my calling, or this is something I'm interested in.
So, what threw you into that part specifically? Like, what was the first moment that I thought, okay, maybe I want to make movies?
Okay, so like the let me look for it, like a way to break it down. For me, the first place that was like, oh, this looks like a cool thing to do was when I had watched a few like Nollywood shows and even like the SA and Nigeria productions. I've always been a fan of like Jacob Scruggs, Pincel, like when they all started, they were looking very new and fresh. It was very exciting to see that we could do things like that. So at one point I was like, it'd be so cool to see how these people make this thing. So again, it wasn't even about me working there. It was more of just seeing how they do it. And I was curious about their process. So right before I graduated, like a few months before I graduated, like I was doing that thing of what's next in my life. Like I was looking at my degree and I was like, PR is not really a thing in Nigeria. Like PR was not even, I don't know if they even had like a solid industry then. I just knew a few names, but I was like, yeah, it's not looking like PR is my path in Nigeria. And journalism was not given then. Like there was, I don't even know if it was only channels that was popping as a good station. So I was really scared. I was like, have I wasted years in uni not knowing what is coming next? So like even my mom had done the whole okay, you're just chilling at home, like before you graduate, what are you doing with your life? So randomly one day I don't even like it was like a light bulb moment. I was like, okay, since I'm saying I like watching these shows, I like spending time talking about these shows and what they do. So like, okay. I remember seeing a few names on my screen. I'll just reach out to them and see if I can just see what they are doing and learn. Even if it doesn't mean working professionally, let me just see if there's a way I can come in to that industry and see how it works. And yeah, I got lucky and I reached out to one of the writers of Hotel Majestic then because that was the show I remember like watching last, and then Hush has started, but I wasn't really watching Hush, but I just remember I was seeing people and I was like, okay, these people have a pattern. Clearly I've been following them since like Tinsel, and I was like, okay, if they're the same people, that means they make like really cool stuff. Let me just see how it is behind the scenes. So I sent my CV. No, I had sent a message first and I was like, I want to intern for free on set so I can come in and see how things are. I just felt that would be a nice way to just put myself there. I'm not asking for anything in return. I'm not asking for you to pay me or help me. Just throw me there. Let me see how it works. And yeah, I did that. Then I never even said I was going to be a writer, by the way. Like I never said anything about writing because the only writing I had done up until then was just writing in secondary school for my friends. And that was just me rewriting stuff I had watched. Like I'm a huge fan of Bollywood and Mexican telenovelas. So like them Second Chance and all those things, I'll watch them and rewrite them. So there was nothing professional. I was like, I can't tell people I'm a writer because if they ask me to read something I've written, I won't have anything to show. So I was like, let me just read the room and see what is available for me. So I was like, okay, I guess I want to be a producer. Then I just kept like following the writers up and down, reading. So that was the first time I saw what a script was. I was like, oh wow, like this is way technical than I even expected it to be. I saw the whole process of like breaking story, learning what outlines were, how like what you write is what they have to shoot, and all the technicalities. And I was like, okay, I guess this is something I'm very interested in.
Yeah, so did you start writing scripts before you actually made your first movie?
Yes, so when I started working on set as like, I was learning to be a producer, I think that was like 2017. I was still like, okay, I'm learning about production, but I was reading more scripts. So I used to do this thing of like, I'll take scripts back home, and whenever they send scripts for the actors, I'll be reading them. I download them and I'll be reading just to see. So it's like learning, like copy and paste, honestly. So like that's the only way I can learn, since there's nobody to start telling me, oh, this is what you write here and everything. So I Google like, what does this thing mean in the script? What does like the parts of a script and what they mean? So I'll do all of that and I'll rewrite stuff. Then one day I was like, okay, I had a story to pitch, and that was my first time ever developing a mini series, or what would become a mini series. So I had developed a series which ended up being Flat 3B Anti. It's still on YouTube. And that was the first ever script I wrote as a professional. I remember writing it in December 2017, like right before I traveled for like dirty December. So I was like, oh, this is my first script ever. And I was like, I loved it. I loved the process. I was like, it was 3 episodes and it just felt like, yeah, this was something that was natural to me. And it felt like, yeah, I want to do more of it. And as always, the rest is history. But from then, from 2017, I was like, okay, I want to focus more on writing. So anytime people are talking about anything production, I just started throwing myself out there as I write. Like, invite me to your rooms, invite me to your workshops. Like, I want to write.
But you started off as a writer and then you eventually made some films, some short films. At what point did you go from writer to
Yeah.
filmmaker and what inspired that decision?
Okay. Impatience inspired it, because when you start writing, you get very comfortable. Try when you write for like TV, because it's like a bubble. You're not really seeing the hustle of filmmaking. You're not seeing the business part of it. You just write and you get paid and your work finishes there. And I wanted more. I was like, I want to make more decisions, more executive decisions, more creative decisions. Like if I'm constantly complaining about people changing what I've written, I should do my own thing so I can be in control of that. So even started first and foremost, it started in 2017. That was the first time I had a a short film idea. But then they're like, oh, like, do you know how much it costs to make stuff? And I was like, no, I don't have any idea how much it costs. And they're like, oh, like filming is not just cheap. You don't just write a script and it's suddenly made. My first short film idea was in 2017. I had written it. I was like, I just want to make something. But if I look back, of course, the story was not there. It was just words and all of that. So I left it for a while. Then I got more comfortable in writing. So 2018, 2019, then COVID happened. And when COVID was happening, I was very restless at home. I was like, okay, I've been in this circle for like, I think was my second year officially as a writer. And I was like, okay, I need to do more. I can't just sit down at home and be waiting for people to give me work. I need to put myself out there. I need to branch out from what I'm used to. And I was just talking to a friend who was my producer, and I was like, I think I want to make a short film. Like, I think we should just try. And she was like, oh, like, what budget? I was like, we don't even have a budget. We don't have anything clear. And then we're talking about camera. And I was like, why can't we just... And like, the story I had then would work very well for filming on phones. Like, it didn't have to be anything grand. Let's just try it, give it a trial, and like, let's see if we fail or if we crash out. Like, let's just try something. And we did the first short film in 2020. Yeah, and we did it in 2020. And that was it. That was how I just started from 2020.
And another thing I've noticed in your films that they always have a message. A message of female anger, a message of love and loss, a message of predatory behavior. Is that the most important thing to you when writing? Giving people a message.
Yes, but like I wouldn't even say it as a message because I try to avoid being that person that is preaching to people, but it's more of reflecting society back to itself. I feel like you have to remind people of like, and one thing again is like I also look at untouched topics around us. And I'm like, okay, if I'm not happy, so for example, let's use the obvious, if we say female rage and stuff like that, because that's something I even enjoy watching in other like industries in Hollywood, in K dramas. I love how they touch like not the I don't want to call them bad female characters, but like the morally gray female characters. So something I'm always watching and I'm like, oh, I would like to see how we handle it here in Nollywood. And it's that thing of that's that there's this cliche quote about write what you want to see. So for me, it's like, okay, if I like this topic and I've not seen someone do it like in a way I will enjoy, instead of sitting down and complaining, I might as well just do my own. And if it still doesn't land, it's a case of okay, like keep making it, yeah.
Right into my next question because I was going to ask, how much attention do you pay to what you want to create as opposed to what an audience would want to see?
Oh, that's a very good question. I'll say 70-30 or no, 70-30 is not. Let's say 60-40. 60 of what I really want to see and 40 of what works for the audience. So I know we love drama, we love the high emotions, we love the big scale and everything. And I know, okay, maybe I don't have the resources for that just yet, but I can compensate by giving moments of, oh my God, at least people are reacting. It's not they're just bored and just staring. So you have to find a way that you don't lose, because I'm not of the belief of, oh, strictly do what you want to see alone. Unless you want to watch that film alone, you still need to you need to connect with an audience. So if you take a very uncomfortable story, I think something like an Ijo is a very uncomfortable story. It's not pleasant. People don't like to see men be weak and things like that. Like they don't like to watch it, and I've gotten feedback like that. So it's a case of how do you now balance it? Even if you feel like you must tell that story, how do you balance it? You balance it by using good actors, having moments that are very dramatic, that people can also laugh and be like, okay, at least there are moments that work for different people there.
Since you've mentioned it, I want to ask some questions specifically about that movie. Because one thing you did in that movie was you blended different art forms. You ended with a dance, essentially an interpretive dance. Why was that something that was important for you to do? To blend the art forms of dance and film?
I just felt like, honestly, with Ijo was really a case of wanting to do something different. At that point, this was 3 years ago, that was like the biggest push for me. Like that was, looking back, it's funny, but then in that moment, that was the biggest thing I had done by myself. It was a case of pushing myself from, oh, we've used our phones to direct, oh, we've shot in a car. Okay, this was let's use more space. Let's do something that we haven't done. I was like, because normally me, if I see dance in a film, I'm like, why are they dancing? Like, what's happening? But I was like, you know what, just do it. Like for me, it felt very experimental. I was really feeling myself. I was like, we're doing something different. And yeah, at that moment in 2021, it was very daring for me to just do it.
How important is it for you to reinvent your filmmaking style and keep doing something new that people haven't seen before?
Very important. Extremely, because I'm in the process of even working on another short film. And to me, I don't really care what people can disagree, that's their business. To me, this is completely different from what I've done before. It's also a different theme, similar to my the only thing that people can say, oh, it's similar to the rest is, okay, I guess the female character, but everything else is different. And it's a thing of and it's also, as a filmmaker, it's like training yourself. You get to see how far you're willing to go to put your stuff out there, how much you're willing to push yourself, because you're the one that can push yourself the best. People can advise you from now to tomorrow. If you don't put in the work, nothing changes. So I agree, honestly, that your first short film should look completely different from your third. And your third should look, it depends on how many you want. If you want to do 10 short films, number three cannot look like number six. You may have similar themes. You can have your if you're a genre specific person, you can have that, but they still don't have to look alike.
Another thing I've noticed in your filmography is that in Ijo and Why Am I Angry, you work with Genevieve on me. How important is it for you to have frequent collaborators that understand you and understand your style?
So it's very important. Like the two people that I've made, like I'll say five short films, and four has the same actors. So Teniola in Why Am I Angry, and Omozi, then Genevieve in Ijo, and also Why Am I Angry. It helps that they're friends. It helps that they're my friends. And it was, I don't know, it was just a thing of we work so well together, we understand each other. And at that point, when we made those things together, we needed those stories. So for Genevieve, she needed something that was different. And for Tenny, she also like we both needed to do something different from what we had done, and it just worked.
And another thing that I always wondered about filmmakers is you have a vision in your head. You have an idea of what the film is going to look like. But when you bring other people into it, they all have different visions. How do you combine everyone's perspective and point of view to get the best film?
Well, this is a very good question because I think a lot of filmmakers need this. And for me, my answer is simply you have to go with what works for story. And if I know there's this thing of my vision, my vision, my vision, we sometimes get very fixated on what we want to see, and it's hard to change our minds. And I also support standing your ground. Of course, if you're the executive producer, you have the opportunity to have the final veto and all of that. But at the end of the day, it also needs to be something that works for story. So sometimes, and I think for me, my luck is starting out in TV writing. When you start out as a TV writer, you work with so many other people right from start. So you're already used to different ideas. You're already used to different opinions. So it doesn't really shake you. You don't get sensitive when they say, oh, how about like this works, but how about do it this way? Or this doesn't really work for this stuff. And again, approach is very important. So it's not just what you're saying, it's how you say it too. As long as you're not rude or shouting at the person, every opinion should be welcome. It's a thing of, I like this, but how about we do it this way? A good example, even with this whole vision thing, like in the beginning of the year, I said, oh, I want to make a short film this year. I had a story, I had a whole pitch deck, all of that. I was like, oh, I really want to tell this story. And just randomly, it was even the same month, I think. Randomly, I was like, I don't like this story. Like, it's boring. I was telling myself, and even as I was telling myself that, I was feeling hurt. I was like, this is boring. Like, this is nothing. Like, this is basically the same thing you've been doing. Like, it's the same pacing. Like, switch it up, do something else. And it was me talking to myself, but it was still painful. But again, it's the fact. As long as you're thinking of because I'm very big picture oriented. Like, I'm like, as long as it works for the big picture, we're good.
I wanted to go back to something you spoke about before. You spoke about how essentially in your film you hold up a mirror to society, you show society what it looks like. But there are also people that see film as an escape. Why is it important for you to reflect society in your writing and film?
I think it goes back to, I know if like this thing you said, even me, I'm of the opinion of, oh, films are not documentaries. Like people should have fun and all of that. But again, approach is very important. So even if you are, I don't know, like we watch Marvel, DC, all these superhero films, of course we know nobody can shoot webs out of their hands. But these films also still have messages, quote unquote, in them. They show us people, they reflect back people to us, but without being so preachy. It doesn't end with a, oh my God, like all good people must get cookies or all bad people must die. We always have the villains, we have the heroes, we have the, I don't know, anti-heroes. These are still very real people at the bottom of it all. It's just the how you dress it up that matters. So even if I say, oh, reflecting society back to itself, there should still be a form of it's not my reality, that's not my business, and I move on after watching it. Because again, everybody's reality is different. Like for so again, I think Ijo is always the biggest example. Most people are, they cannot fathom a man crying over a woman. They've never seen it in their life. They don't believe it. That's very okay. But you've now seen it in the film. You've now seen it in the film. So when you end up seeing it 5 years from now, you remember that, oh well, I guess I've watched this before, that it can happen. So it's a very thin line between being preachy and remembering the entertainment factor.
I also wanted to ask that you've been a filmmaker for a while now. At the very least, you said you made your first shots in 2020. What are some of the challenges and hurdles that you've seen that have made you grow as a filmmaker?
The biggest hurdle always in money, like finances, like, oh Lord, raising money for a short film is not easy. Like when people talk about feature films, I'm like, you guys, it's so tough. Like even a short film is not cheap. The biggest hurdle will always be money, and yeah, I think for me that's it. Because once you've gone past the phase of making the film, it's entirely up to you what you want to do with it. If you want to do the festival route, if you want to just use it for screenings or use it to pitch for more money, that's really up to you. For me, the biggest hurdle is finance, and also you learning how to be a better filmmaker, because there's no better place to learn than on the job. I know people have different opinions about that, but for me, my own experience was learning on the job. It's like failing through school and realizing, okay, these are the mistakes I made. So for something like, if you say I shot a short film and I made a mistake of not being so thorough on seeing every single thing in every department, for the next short film, I'm going to pay more attention. Nothing is going to pass me by. I will not be so, because sometimes you get very comfortable that, oh, every department has somebody there, so I don't really need to check everything. But you realize, oh well, if I don't check everything, some things will not start. I'll see is when we're filming, or sometimes even after you finish filming, you're like, oh shit, what's this doing in this scene? Why is this here? Like, how did we all miss that? So it's finance and learning on the job, those two things.
And as you've spoken about how you have a wide spectrum of films and TV shows that you've enjoyed. You spoke about Tinsel, you spoke about telenovelas, you spoke about K-dramas. How important is it to have all these influences, how important is it to watch a wide spectrum of things to understand how to create a film?
It's important to enjoy them. So, first and foremost, I think the first thing is to enjoy them, is to see. So when I use Tinsel, I always say the earlier version of Tinsel, like when it started, because then when it started, it felt like, oh my God, this is not something we haven't seen before. And there's always that excitement in that thing of, oh, because when you see something you haven't seen before being done, it means it can be done. So that's one thing I take away from watching stuff that is not just Nollywood. So when I watch something like Jacob's Cross, is learning, okay, so South Africa and Nigeria can make a production together. Nice, noted. When you watch K-drama, you're like, oh my God, you can show soft moments, tender moments like this without it being so, like, I don't know the word, without it being boring. It can be entertaining. Like, for me, my big examples will always be Bollywood and K-drama. Not Z-World. I mean proper Bollywood and K-drama, the Shah Rukh Khans, the Hrithik Roshans. Like, you see, because people get tired when they hear of dance. I'm like, sorry, accept the music. That's their culture. But it's a thing of, you watch films like, I always use Om Shanti Om as an example. It's one of my favorite Bollywood films. It's so dramatic, but at the end of the day, like, one thing you always remember is the feelings it left you with. And I'm so big on that. I think you should leave a film feeling like, it's like when you go and watch, for me, I think it was when I watched, I can't remember which of the Spider-Man films. I think is No Way Home. No, the second one where they traveled for summer holiday.
Far From
I remember watching Yes, thank you. Like I remember watching it in the cinema. When I came out of the cinema, I was so annoyed to be in Lagos. I was just like, oh my god, like I disappeared briefly. I was so happy. The music, the soundtrack of the film was so good. Like they had so many nice songs. I was like, this was such a fun experience. Just something you learn. You learn like how to create experiences with scenes. You learn how to like all the melodrama from Bollywood, it will work in Nollywood because we're similar people also. It's learning, okay, you can show your culture without like propaganda. And you can even do, because Bollywood does amazing propaganda, but we don't know because they are very big on propaganda. Their government pumps a lot of money in their films. We don't realize some of the films they show us is actually just propaganda for, oh, India is the greatest country in Asia. But again, they do it so well that I'm just very open to taking something from every culture and like, okay, how do I make it my own version without just copying and pasting?
Have you watched RRR?
I'm not really a fan of that.
Yeah, because that's massive propaganda. When you were talking about propaganda, that's what I was
Yes,
just remembering.
exactly. See,
Massive propaganda.
once I started clocking like the propaganda films, I just avoid them. I'm like, I'm not here for this.
Okay, what are some of the Nigeria specific problems that you faced being a filmmaker in the film industry?
Wow, okay, let me see problems I faced. I'll say personally as a writer, there was a phase where like nobody knows writers, nobody like cares to know, right? Like there was a thing of visibility. I think that's the way I can phrase it. So for me, it's visibility, recognition, like getting your credit for the work you have done. That is a big problem. Like our industry is very credit. Ah, God, it's like everybody wants to show that they are wearing many hats. They are big on, oh, I did everything myself. I mean, it's fine if you actually did do it, but we forget that collaboration is what makes the world go round. And it takes a village, whether we like it or not. Yes, you can be you can sow the first seed. Nobody will take that from you ever. But collaboration makes the world go round. But when you don't want to give credit to somebody, it causes a ripple effect. And if you get away with that behavior, people think, oh, okay, bad behavior is what is thriving. Let me be more wicked. Let me learn from the wicked people and be more wickeder. But it's such a huge problem because again, even as a writer, that's why writers don't now start doing 5 things at once when you should just focus on honing your craft as a writer, learning to do better. But everybody now wants to do 5 things because that's the only way you can get your recognition, your visibility, and more work.
And now that I've spoken about some of the problems, what are some of the opportunities that you feel aren't being exploited in the Nigerian film space?
Oh, thank you for that question. One thing I'll say is there's so many opportunities in production design, cinematography, public relations, those three. Production design, cinematography, public relations. Not everybody has to be a writer, a producer, or a director. You don't have to. You can be a writer and a production designer if you want to try something new. You should learn. I think more people should also look into cinematography. We need more in those areas. We need more cinematographers. We need more direct, like production designers. We need more. We need a lot of public relations specialists. Because thankfully I have a degree in that, so it even helps when I'm in rooms for like producing and everything. I can consult for PR and everything. But I think we need more people in that, not just PR brand, like not just brand companies, but actual PR consultants for film. Yeah, just three: cinematography, production design, public relations. Trying to remember which other area we had even this like line producing, ADs. There's so many room like so there's space in those roles, but people are not aware and they just think, oh, they don't like those people don't get famous. Everybody wants to be famous, but if you do the job well, you will shine. Like we can't have one great AD alone or one great production design. They are human beings. They'll get tired. You can't just like milk them till they faint.
And the last question I wanted to ask was, how do you see the Nigerian film industry evolving? Where do you feel like it's going?
Uh, I don't even know. I think this last quarter of the year is looking very positive. We have like an amazing lineup of stuff. I think people are currently in production for. I think next year is going to be exciting. Like I've seen some pictures of people announcing stuff. I personally think next year is going to be very, very interesting. So yeah, I think one can just be hopeful and positive that okay, it's looking up from here. I know sometimes we get very negative about like with all these streamers and their wahala, we get very negative and we think, oh, what's the word? We think that's the end. And everybody, for example, the way everybody's rushing to do YouTube now, everybody likes to just rush to one place. Everybody love like we love to concentrate on one field, not knowing like there's so many parts we can enter. There's enough space everywhere. So that's I think it's a mixture of hoping for an exciting future and also hoping we learn to be less like we need to learn more abundance and we need to like operate less from scarcity because we're always afraid of we're missing out on stuff. Everybody feels if you're not currently announcing something, you're not an important filmmaker or you're not serious enough. There's this feeling of FOMO that's massive. But I think we should like I don't know. It's hard. It's easy to say because filmmaking is tough. It's very tough. It's easy to say, oh, don't give in to the FOMO, but we should learn to not give in to the FOMO. We should just focus on doing our work, doing exciting projects. And yeah, I hope it's really better like next year because looking at the things that I've released even right now is exciting. It's like we just need more and more opportunities. Yeah, more money.